Good evening. This is day 3 of Ignite Your Soul Connection. I hope you've been able to follow us the last couple of nights where we've talked to several of the other Master Force coaches. On Monday, we had the opportunity to be with Alanda and Angel as we talked about how pain heals. You can go back and look at those on YouTube under the Rita Stewart channel, or you can find us the links on Ignite Your Soul Connection fan page. And then on Tuesday night, we actually spoke with Lisa Anderson about mirror work. So you will find out a great deal of spiritual information or soul-fulfilling information to get you set for the winter solstice. And my name is Shemsu-t. This is Ignite Your Soul Connection, Season 8, Coaching for the Soul. We have been sharing this gift with you now for about 7 years. We started in the winter of 2011, just as an opportunity to share some of the great talents and gifts of the people in our community who may be your next door neighbors. A lot of times we forget that we have everything that we need right in front of us. So this year we're dedicating Ignite Your Soul Connection Season 8 to the original founders of Master Force, who was with me in the early 1990s, and that would be Catherine Winston and Angela Stewart. I refer to them as Aka Herit and Ma'at Shri Tam. We were 3 mothers who created an opportunity to sit in meditation with our teenage sons and their friends back in the day, so to speak. And now we have come forward almost 30 years later with Master Force, and we have many other programs, but now we have certified over 300 Master Force life coaches through this program. And this week you get to hear from some of the, I don't know, what is it, the most generous coaches, you know, willing to share their stories and their skills and their gifts. So tonight we have joining us from the Leadership Institute of Transformation and Empowerment in Jackson, Tennessee, Timothy Glenn. And Timothy has been on in our conversation of Ignite Your Soul Connection since its inception. So let me have Timothy come in and introduce himself. We'll be talking about the shadow art, and we'll find out more about that as we go. So Timothy, why don't you come in and introduce yourself, and then tell us something about you. Hello.
Hey, how are you? And I'm grateful to be here. Thank you for this platform, Shemsu-t. That is such a blessing and such a pleasure to be able to be in this space of healing and working through with the other coaches and even the listeners here. So I just want to begin by thanking you for once again inviting me here. You know, it's such a pleasure and to have this opportunity. You may notice, everyone, that I am here alone on this evening. Yeah. My wife had a situation she had to tend to. So I am going to cover for her while she handles that business. So, you know, I hate to disappoint everyone. I'm the boring one of the two, but we'll find a way to work through it, hopefully. Yeah. Again, my name is Timothy Glenn. I'm a resident of Jackson, Tennessee. My background, goes back to when I was 16 years old, a junior in high school. A basketball coach, it was the girls' basketball coach, by the way, and that coach actually coached my mom. That's how, and you know, my mom, of course, is my mother. So that's that's another generation he's coming in. Leading people to the light, if you will. And he introduced me to the power of the subconscious mind at 16 years old. Totally changed my life. Now, he taught history, and I believe he taught civics class, right? So every class, he would play subliminals while he lectured. And he would give me subliminal tapes to sleep with. And they really conditioned me towards this work. I didn't know it then because everyone thought he was so weird, right? And the subliminals would actually put so many students to sleep that he had to stop doing, right? So he had to start giving the tapes out individually, and I was one of them. I was just interested in those things. From there, as a teenager also, I began to become what would be known now as a youth minister. I began to speak before large congregations of people and small. I'm from a small Baptist church, and I am a licensed and ordained minister as well. Even though the work I do now is quite different, it's still a very strong foundation of what I'm doing now. Therefore, you know, everyone has a platform and foundation that they start with. And from there, that generation carries it into the next phase of its evolution. So that's been my path with that. So with that, started preaching again very young. At age 27, I met a beautiful woman that you may know as Jiquay. We got married, and the next day after our marriage, we started a church. Because back then, you know, you couldn't get down without being married, right? So you can't start a church on the wrong foot. So we said, okay, we're going to get married, you know, get that out the way. And next day we started a ministry. Probably one of the best sermons I ever had, right? Well, okay, so we started that ministry. That ministry really, the name of it was Destiny's Place. From Destiny's Place, it became what is known as Light today, which is Leadership Institute for Transformation and Empowerment. From that ministry, I remember what I was taught at 16 and all of the things that really brought about my path of enlightenment, if you will. I use that word very carefully because so many people really don't understand what enlightenment is. But it led me to this path, and I could no longer preach the same message of duality, which consists of right and wrong, good and bad, because of my understanding and understanding of how the universe works. So from that moment, we gave our members a choice. We can find you another church home, or you can travel to this path of the unknown. Well, some were more comfortable with the church setting. They went their way. Some were crazy enough to follow us, and we went our way. And those are many of those that you see now, Shemsu-t, when you come down here, right?
Yeah.
You see, those are the crazy ones that followed us. There were some who started with us, but the work was a little too much, and they went back to what was comfortable. But many did follow us in this path. So now my work, and what should I say, our work here, is to deal with the shadow, and we use a lot of tools to get there. But the main focus is to deal with the shadow and understanding the shadow and inviting it into our space to where it's no longer a stranger, but making it family in the process of our growth. So, you know, and then that takes me to Masterforce, right? You know, for the longest, I wanted to get on Facebook, but I didn't want to go through the process of people knowing my business like that. So, you know, there was a conflict there. And finally, I got on Facebook, and probably my first 30 friends was this beautiful Afrocentric woman named Rita Stewart, that we know as Shemsu-t, right? I sent her a message telling her how much I appreciate her post, and I really see us working together one day. Remember that? From
That was
that,
almost 10 years ago.
absolutely, absolutely. From there, you encouraged me to, well, actually, me and my wife, really to join forces with Light and with Master Force, and we began to take the course. And that's probably one of the best things that ever happened to us, was meeting you, because we thought everyone else, we thought we were the only ones this crazy. There were no one else speaking this language, you know, of inner work and shadow work and dealing with our inner pain and all of that, you know, without religious overtones. So we met you, and from there, we really have created a family with you all and the coaches there. You know, like I said, just listening to the coaches before me tonight, I don't even see the need for me to be here, because you know, Monday and Tuesday, pretty much, if you can't get it from that wealth of knowledge that those coaches brought forth, it's going to be a long ride for you anyway. So I'm going to be here for the next hour or so to bore you even more. But that is my background, and you know, I am thankful that you invited me into this space, me and my family, you know, and I can just say I'm grateful for that.
It's so amazing, Timothy, because you know, your family is your family, and the people in your ministry are very much my community. You know, I long to be with you guys as much as I love being, you know, with Master Force people in Chicago, and other places around the world. And when I came earlier I think it was actually maybe 2 or 3 years ago, when you invited each and I down to share a fellowship with you guys. It really was a new introduction into community.
Yes.
And I believe over time, I've come to learn what it means to surrender to people loving, nurturing, and caring for you.
Yes.
And I really, it really is essential, because the whole conversation of the strong Black woman, what she misses out on is community. Is because she thinks that she is the one that takes care of everything, when actually what has to happen is the letting go, so that others can contribute.
Yes.
And I know that that is the gift that you guys have given me. So it is extremely mutual. And I know that's how the universe works. You know, if it looks like somebody's giving you something, you're receiving something if you're open to it. Everybody doesn't necessarily is open to receiving, but I am open to receiving, and I'm grateful for you guys. And then your daughter, Tia, I just love her. She gives me so much inspiration and in touch with the younger feminine self that I did not know and embrace then, but I get to do that now, just through, you know, appreciating who she is. So thank you. Thank you so much for all of you.
Like I said, I do need to mention her, because if I don't, I'm going to pay for it after after this show. Yes, my daughter Tamari is such a great gift. Always been such a gift to me. Even I can remember living in a duplex, you know, in another city, and we really needed space, right? And my daughter says, "Dad, on tomorrow, you need to wake up and get a house," right? And at the time, keep in mind, I worked, you know, in a factory making probably in 19, well, actually it's 2000. In 2000, you know, making 800, you know, anywhere from 800 to 1,000 a week. That's pretty good then, you know, I went to that into doing ministry, and I remember our first offering being $14. So, and I was making $14 for a while, you know. So she comes out and said, "You know what, you need to get a house." And lo and behold, I did that. I called a realtor up, a gentleman in the city, and by the next month, we're living in that house that you
Wow.
come to visit now. She's such a gift to, you know,
Wow.
to us. And she has now been accepted into Howard University to major in dance and whatever else she wants to do.
That's
You know,
right. That's
you know,
right.
whatever, you know, I just get, and she's been such a joy because she's been through a lot. And I'm hoping one day she can tell her story in her own way.
Yeah.
I think she'll be very successful in any way that she expresses that.
I do too. Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I told her that we're going to be hanging out on the campus. So, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Right.
Yes. That's just how we do, you know, and I know that that's how we do, because as community, it's like, what's going on? Let's hop in the car. Let's roll, you know, and it doesn't have to be for anything but to socialize.
Absolutely.
You know, we want to see, when I'm talking to you on the phone, I want to know what your dorm room looks like.
That's right.
You know, so that kind of stuff. Very cool. All right. Well, let's go ahead and delve into our conversation, because I already know we could talk for hours about a whole lot of stuff, right?
Yes,
but tonight, we really want to talk about the shadow. And this time we're calling it shadow art.
Yes.
Yes. So what is meant by the term shadow art?
All right. Well, again, for me, and I can only speak for myself and really the group that surrounds me, my tribe, the work that we do. The shadow, well, first of all, let's think of what a shadow is, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are three things needed two actually, for a shadow to take place. And that's light and an object. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever there's light, and light could be an example of knowledge, could be an example of information.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is the solid object, right? Now, there are two types of objects. There's an object that's solid, and there's one that is transparent. We'll get to the transparent in just a minute. The object that is solid is known as the ego, or even the false self. Once information shines, the ego has its own perception, which is very limited as to what it is receiving. And many people stop at the ego. You know, they just get knowledge, and they believe that enlightenment could actually come from the information that they are receiving. I have found that to be very false in my practice and in my path. Now, from the solid object, the light shines upon it, creating a shadow from that. And the ego is totally unaware that the shadow exists within itself. Therefore, we notice it by how we experience life, our interactions with life. One may think that they are doing well, and then they look at someone else that they perceive who has more. They become jealous and full of envy. Well, it's hard for them to recognize jealousy in its purest form, because that is not how the shadow works. The shadow's job is to hide, and it's your job to find him or her, whatever you want to look at it. There are masculine shadows, there are feminine shadows. It's whatever culture that you are part of. Well, for me in the path, it is the work of looking at all of the darker, lower qualities that bring us shame, guilt, and all of the lower energies, looking at those and finding a way to integrate them, again, to where the shadow is no longer a stranger, but we invite the shadow as family. Remember, we talked about the shadow last year, and I talked about how to invite the shadow in a romantic way, in a way that is intimate versus one that is full of conflict and being combative. Because when we come from that angle of being combative, then we lose the shadow and it becomes dissolved into into a space that we no longer even recognize again. So we're on the hamster wheel, if you will, dealing with the shadow. But if we learn how to integrate that, and that's what we do, which is making the shadow, understanding that it is a part of us that we didn't recognize, but now that we do, we own what we perceive and what we see. Then the shadow, the ego rather, becomes what we say transparent. Or we use the word integrity or integrated. Then light shines through the transparent object and light comes out on the other side, but it's no longer the insecurity and fear. It comes off as wisdom. It comes off as understanding. It comes off as the pure essence of life itself. Again, I was a minister for, well, I'm still a minister, right?
Right, you are, right?
So, you know.
You were in the church ministry.
Absolutely. But again, I see so many people hating on church and all of that. But if they really picked up a Bible and stepped away from the literal approach, you can see the deeply metaphysical insights that Scripture gives us. In the beginning, we remember the Garden of Eden. We remember that there were two trees there, right? There was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which is dualism, which is the light shining upon the solid object of the ego. Then we have the tree of life, which represents the transparent self, which is a life of understanding and wisdom. Well, we read the story and we understand that the cultural feminine shadow, they say it was Eve who enticed Adam. That's another shadow that we could look at.
Right.
Enticed him to partake of the knowledge of good and evil because we can become just like God if we do. And in a sense, that's totally correct. As a matter of fact, many people look at it as a mistake Adam made, but I think it is the only approach to actually imitate God is to go through the shadow. There was no other way that we could accomplish that. So with that being said, we compare those stories and that gives us a unique understanding of what the shadow is. And there's no way, I don't even think that there are words in the English language that can really explain what the shadow is. It's just a process that we must go through as humans, as beings of light, in order to achieve the ascension process. So I'm hoping that gives us kind of a clue as to where we want to go tonight.
So you know, what's there for me is that so much of what we have been conditioned to do is to live from our ego.
Yes.
I mean, that's all we know. So, you know, when you talk about shadow, the shadow and seeking it out and doing shadow work, how do people get to there? How do they get to even knowing that there's this work to do?
Wow. Well, here's the thing. Again, remember, the job of the shadow is to hide. It is not going to announce its presence. Therefore, another scripture that I can remember, nothing is hid that shall not be made manifest. There is nothing in secret that shall not be known and come to the light. So it is the illusion of the ego to believe that, you know, it can continue this path of trickery in order to fool those who witness its space. And by saying that, how can I put this? I truly believe that the ego is the face and the shadow is what's behind, like behind the back part, right? The behind the head. Well, the ego can cover the front because it puts on a mask. So you can't see exactly what is in that moment. But what about that which is behind us? Well, there's two ways that we deal with that. Number one is a mirror. We talked about that on last night. Okay, we can take a mirror, hold it up, and kind of see what's going on. Or we can trust the tribe that is surrounding us to give us correct information about what they are experiencing with us. Now, we still have a choice to believe what they say. That's why it's important to surround yourself with people that you trust, people that you love and know that will tell you the truth. So with doing that, we must remember that if an individual wants true happiness and really wants to be content, right, they must learn the work of the shadow. And the shadow is a mystic art. It is not something that you can read a book and necessarily get insight on. The shadow is very deep and very complex, and it takes a lifetime, and sometimes more than a lifetime, to get the shadow work correctly. So I think one would do well in looking at the shadow for what it is and not being intimidated and overwhelmed by the negative qualities that they may experience.
You know, that is so powerful, that you say that we want to be able to create a community that we can trust the feedback on, yes. Right? We often think that first community is our family.
Yes.
And oftentimes our family have not evolved to the point of being a clear enough mirror for us to see ourselves in. And so most of the time in those relationships, we create a strong sense of defiance, resistance, anger. I mean, so then when we go from our natural family to, you know, a spiritual tribe, it takes time to create the flexibility in hearing people give us feedback. Because what's still there are those operative ways of being defiant. So you tell me something, but you just like my mother. That's what I see. My mother talked to me like my mother told me, but it's still the truth.
Yes.
So how do you soften that? How do you support people in softening so that their listening becomes more, because they come to us, we know that people show up to us from the soul level. And at least I do. You know, I know that the only reason people come into my life is to do the work. Yes. Even if they're resisting it.
Yes.
You know, and sometimes you have to let them resist and go away. But, you know, how do you support the softening, the listening, the growth so that people can get to the point of doing the work? And I know that's yeah.
Right. Well, let me tell you, if you're looking to get rich, don't be a coach going into shadow work, because I'm telling you, the turnover rate between clients who come or who are excited in the beginning, once the process begins, can be quite overwhelming, right? So we have many clients who come through and will touch on it as much as they can stand for a month or two, and we may not hear from them for another year.
Yes.
That is the process of dealing with shadow issues. Once again, approaching the shadow in a romantic way is an important approach to how we engage this dark, unknown aspect of ourselves. I believe that the gentle process of who we are really wants to see it. It's the dark qualities of the shame and guilt. Because whenever we deal with the shadow, many times we learn about the shadow by some type of impulse that we made. You know, somebody may say something to you that reminds you, like you said, of mom and father back in the day, or some person who was in leadership or guidance in their life and it was painful. Somebody could say something to that to unconsciously remind them of that. And then they impulsively react instead of responding. Through that reaction, we can define and see the shadow for what it is. when the shadow is present, it's time to work. The shadow is not something you could put in a closet and say, I'll do it when I feel like it, or I'll do it when I have time. If the shadow presents itself, you know, it comes out of hiding. At that moment, work must be done. And if you don't trust your own inner processes, then it's very important to hire a coach or to hire a therapist, someone who can walk with you, kind of spiritually hold your hand, because the shadow is the point of initiation.
Yes.
One becomes initiated by the shadow. Therefore, some people, and it's not about I'm strong enough, I can do it alone. Nobody can do shadow work alone. And, you know, even if you don't have a coach or a therapist, you better have your tribe better be genuine in what they see, because if not, both of y'all are going to mirror each other's shadow. And that complicates the dynamic between relationships. There are relationships that we had, you know, us being leaders. And many times the shadow became so intense. Maybe they had a father issue. They came in with this father issue. And while I represent a fatherly archetype, you know, I'm wearing my dark today because, you know, Saturn is in Capricorn. It's very powerful right now. And we'll deal with some astrology with the shadow as well.
That's great. Yes.
But I'm wearing dark right now so I can access the wisdom, fatherly type of mentoring that I've received and that I want to give tonight. But I could say something that reminds them of their father. And the energy is so intense that they begin to project onto me a role that I never signed up for. So if, you know, I say to all of the coaches who are here, if you're new to this, understanding when you step into the space, either as someone who is giving guidance or someone who is nurturing, you become mother and father without signing up for it.
Yes.
So that doesn't mean that you have to agree to this contract. That means that you continue to act in your role as one who leads and guides, but not to take the place of. That is the work of the individual and client that we are mentoring or coaching. That's their work. They must go there alone. It reminds me again of Christ. Everybody's talking about ascension, but nobody's talking about descension. Before Christ ascended, what did he do? Well, many people say, well, he went to hell first. And that's not necessarily true, because there are many types of hell, right? The type of hell that Christ went through was known as Hades. You look at the mythology, and that is, you know, another archetype. If you look at the mythology, you understand that Hades was the owner of the underworld.
Yes.
To where souls, before they could, when they died, souls descended. And we all go through the death process.
Yes.
Once we go through the death process, we now descend into the underworld. When the ego realizes its own weakness, its limitations, that it thought it was the supreme God, now it realizes it needs help. It needs people to assist him or her to engage in the ascension process. Death happens. Yes. Then they go to the underworld. Well, Christ, or Christ consciousness, goes into the underworld to free those stuck there. That's where we come in. We allow the process of Hades to take place in order for them to reach the ascension process. So I got my towel here. I feel like I'm preaching right now.
Come on.
Warming up in here right now. So there are many people, when a client comes to us at Leadership Institute, we understand that it is not by chance. We understand that, okay, something magical has happened to where they have found us, okay? Because we do some advertising, but we don't go overboard with, you know, You know, you see it all the time, the gimmicks, the schemes, the marketing, and that has its place. It has its place, but it should not take the place of the true magnetic attraction between the coach or the mentor and the mentoree, right? So with that being said, as we go through our own Christ consciousness, we free all of the energies that are trapped within us in the underworld that tends to come out in our interactions with people, with those that we even love, even husbands and wives. You know, when I always say, when a man and a woman, they meet, they are not attracted by the superficial. They are attracted by the pain that they both share that needs to be healed.
Yes.
But some people get stuck at the pain.
Yes.
And blame each other and that's how you know the shadow is active. When you begin to blame another for the soul's discomfort, you know, or the ego's discomfort, if you will. I'm not sure the soul, I think the soul is always content if we can access it the correct way. Yeah. So, you know,
but the soul can be speaking.
Yes, absolutely.
Situation, trying to open up. Yeah.
Absolutely. So this is a process of initiation when they come to you. If you are coaching for the purpose of making money, I suggest you get a job to handle that, because the coaching is such a spiritual process. And when the client comes to you, it is a sign that it is work to be done within the coach as well. It's not like you have this information and you are above those that you are teaching and working with. It means that the work, and even when clients come to me over work I thought was taken care of, I know it's time to revisit, because the space has been created again for me to look at something a different way.
Wow. You know, you said so many things, so many thoughts that come to mind. One of the things that I want to re-emphasize is that when people come to us and we become like mother or father, then so it's the authority. It's the authority, that archetype of authority that people really must work through, because we're trained at a very young age to surrender our spiritual essence to authority.
Yes.
When we're in relationship with the universe, it's a relationship. It's not an authority. It really is an energy of flow. So when you create the tell me what to do, or when you tell me what to do, I'm not going to do that. Whatever that authority is, that creates the shadow work.
Yes.
You know, for people to actually begin to release. And when people release that authority, they then can tap into, you know, hearing how God is speaking to them, hearing how the universe is talking to them. Yes. But we become the interaction for them to do that particular work. And when they leave us, it's because they're not ready to take responsibility for their own greatness.
Very true. Very true. You know, I'm gonna leave it at that. I can't even mess with you tonight. I'm not even gonna mess with you tonight.
But that's that out. Well, you know, we've had side conversations, so
so true.
It's kind of hard to dig in there. But now, when you talk about the shame and guilt, how can people actually approach that to move through their work? How can they use that as an avenue?
Yes. Carl Jung has a quote: until you make the unconscious conscious, you will direct your life and you'll call it fate. I believe that the process of self-compassion must be included to awaken that which is asleep in every individual, that really directs them, their life, and steers their life towards certain experiences. And by that experience, we can receive definition, if you will, you know, and that's the key. Everything needs to be defined. What you had an experience. I truly believe life has many languages, and I believe the shadow is a certain language that life uses to instruct us how to handle the truly painful emotions that the shadow may bring. Guilt and shame are really at the top of the list besides fear itself. Fear is the core of both of those things. That I can't overemphasize how self-compassion, understanding that you are not the only one who are going through what you are going through. Understand, and that's what I meant by the astrology here, right? Because when I look at a chart, I can see that not only is this person capable and qualified for the experience that they're having. I don't care, if it's a rape, if it's molestation, and those are really the top things that people think you can't recover from.
Right.
Not only when I look at the astrology, and I use astrology for the purpose of shadow work, to see where we need to, what we need to address in an individual to really promote the ascension process. Not only are they qualified, but they chose the path that they're on. I can see it clearly here. I can look at the north and south nodes of a person's chart and say, yeah, this is a contract that you signed up for. Well, we go through the third dimension here, and we go through the veil of forgetfulness. We forget all about the higher self that signed the contract. We just want to get out of the heat because the oven's hot right now, right? Yeah. So we got to go through that process, and that takes one day at a time. You stop looking at the shadow as something that needs to be defeated or conquered. And again, that is the masculine archetype, the shadow masculine that exists, that everything must be conquered or you must win. You cannot lose. It is not a win-lose situation dealing with the shadow. It is a separation or integration issue. If you want to separate yourself from the emotions, then the shadow has no choice but to sabotage any good thing that you would love to do for yourself, because the shadow must be recognized. Now, when the shadow presents itself, that does not mean that you must come up with answers for what you're seeing. Sometimes you just need to, the mere process of observation brings enlightenment to the dark issues that you have been avoiding itself. So with my clients and those we work with, we just want to give them the courage to look at it.
Yeah.
We'll define it when it's time. We'll give it a name. We'll address that. But can you at least look at it and own it? You know, and let me tell you, the worst people in the world to go through this process are those in leadership.
Yes.
I'm talking about coaches. I'm talking about therapists. I'm talking about pastors, ministers. Why? Again, because of the light thinking that they know what it is already. So who are you to tell me something when my work is surrounded by this? Well, again, I'm talking to the mask. You know, what is behind the mask? What is in the backside of the body of the personality? Sometimes you got to trust what people are telling you. And I know that's a hard process because nobody likes criticism. And criticism is one of the main tools of the shadow, because to be criticized is to be found out.
Yes.
You know, and nobody wants to be found out. Nobody wants to let off that they are insecure, but yet you try to intimidate those that you think you are above. It's a chain reaction to that which we avoid. So in order to get off the hamster wheel of self-sabotage, I invite all of the coaches here to at least look at what you're dealing with. You know, I'm not just talking about people who are considered normal. There are no normal people. We are all in this together. Some have progressed a little bit more than others, but we are all in this together because consciousness is not just individual, it is collective.
Yes.
As a body, we share this work, right? And, you know, I hear people all the time, especially, you know, coaches or teachers, I've reached this level of enlightenment, you know, but you reach this level of enlightenment, but you can't even resist a clapback on Facebook. when
Wow.
somebody rubs you the wrong way,
Right.
But yet you are so-called enlightened, but yet the shadow's impulses come and reveal to us our level of enlightenment, if you will. So with that being said, I think it's important that when it comes to, again, guilt and shame, I don't want to get away from that because those are very painful elements to work through. They are the root to a lot of addictions. They are a root to a lot of the things that transpire over time when we continue to put things under the shelf. But I need for everyone to realize the addiction is not the shadow, okay? No. The shadow is an archetype that is creating the need to be attracted to whatever thing that is objective, that soothes and ease the discomfort of transformation or the discomfort of the shadow revealing itself. And again, there's a place for that. There, I believe therapists should guide someone and lead someone through painful, going through the addiction process, but understand that it's not the shadow. The shadow is the foundation of the addiction. It is an archetypal energy that exists collectively throughout the universe. Ever since day one of Earth, the archetype of consciousness has evolved from that shadow aspect, as well as our enlightened self, as well as the light, also the darkness, which is where light comes from.
That's perfect. That's powerful.
And if we can engage that, I think that we can work through those dark and troubling times.
Well, in Robert Schwartz, in his book, Your Soul's Plan, he actually does talk about addiction being a spiritual path.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of times we don't deal with the fact that we have come from other lifetimes to complete something in this lifetime. And so we've requested this work or that path so that we can learn something at our soul level that maybe we judged or criticized in our other lifetime or something.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad that you mentioned that, which, what most people tend to do is they tend to be judgmental of people instead of being compassionate, and knowing that, and that would give them an access if they had that compassion as well,
Yes.
Yeah, because a lot of times if you can give people that support, they will be able to wean themselves from the addiction.
So true. So true.
Yeah. So that's really great. So now I want you to say a little bit more about the duality teaching.
Okay.
So that so then we can go deeper into the shadow art, but really the duality teaching so that people can get clear about how many of us have how we actually deal with life, good, bad,
Yes. First of all, one must realize that duality is a natural process of the third dimension we live in. I mean, it is a dimension that I truly believe we're outgrowing, okay? But however, it is very present in the life that we live. You look at life, and I believe that my religious upbringing really shines light on my approach to dualism and seeing how dualism, even though I believe dualism is pretty much a Band-Aid that we put on the wound. It is where I became stuck at when I was in, what we know as church and religious societies, right? And I use that, my Christian experience, because that's my experience.
Yes.
It was all about the decisions that we made, and if those decisions were either right or wrong. There was no in between. There was no integration. There was, no merging of the two, which Carl Jung, he talks about the tension between two opposites. It is the right and the wrong that we perceive. Can we look past that and look at what's in the middle being stretched and expanded? So expansion comes not from knowing right from wrong. Expansion comes from embracing the right that we know and the wrong that we know. Because if we do that, sometimes the wrong that we perceive could be right. And the right that we thought was correct could be leading us into more darkness. So I think the process of enlightenment as it relates to the shadow is to deal with dualism and put it in its place. I believe morality is important, but I think we need to somewhere outgrow the prehistoric, outdated definition of what morality is. Because it's easy to point a finger and say, yo, she's bad, without understanding the shadow that is causing the actions, right? So many religions teach us how to alter our behavior.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about behavior. Act this way. Well, how many priests can act a certain way, but later it's revealed that they have molested many children? How can that be?
Wow.
Because behavior, shifting and transforming behavior is not the work. It's putting a Band-Aid on the wound. Can we go beneath the cultural shame or the feminine shadow or the masculine shadow to understand what is causing these actions? And that's not to excuse anybody from harming another, okay?
Right.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is those who are in this space must learn how to go past the behavior and look at the cause and the root of what is activating that shadow. And then, are we mature enough to go beyond right and wrong and what we perceive and point fingers and look at why it annoys us in a certain way? That's another level of the shadow, because look, you know, and I'm guilty of this as well. I may post something on Facebook with somebody that's getting on my nerves. You know, I'll use our president, you know, as one. You know, I understand Trump's a character. I understand that Trump is necessary for the evolution of consciousness. We became comfortable with Obama because Obama represented what was right in duality. Yeah. And whenever right comes, there is perceived wrong. There is the shadow that is manifest in the next election. It's always been like that. Yeah. And we go through the pendulum of back and forth. And eventually, you know, you get off the hamster wheel and understand that everything is necessary. It doesn't mean that you're not human and stuff don't get on your nerves. And I don't want to, you know, lead anybody that way. But I don't want to get in the process of being stuck in the dualism of he is good, he is bad, therefore, you know, let's be more like him who is good. Well, those that we believe are good, you don't know the mask that they have.
Nope.
You have no idea of the length that the ego will go to keep that mask on and not be revealed. Right now, I'm trying to stay away from the astrology, but it's very necessary because we have Jupiter in Scorpio. Every day you turn on the news, there is some case of improper sexual activity between the male and the female. You know, those energies are now in conflict. That is dualism in itself. Well, those shadows are being exposed. Why? For you to look at your TV and say, oh, I didn't know he did something like that. But look at how it excites you and look at the judgment and criticism that is coming from you, and you know where your work begins. So the shadow then becomes something more than just a painful experience. It becomes a gift for us to be reintroduced to ourselves, because the self that we thought we were didn't really exist at all.
Wow. That is so amazing. You just really brought everything, you know, from the outside, like the political arena is actually taking place inside.
Absolutely.
Of each one of us. Yes. I mean, the whole movement with the Me Too, I mean, that gave so many women an opportunity to bring up that issue, not just to say Me Too, but to check themselves. Am I healed? Am I stuck? And where am I in that? And then they could release it.
Yes.
You know, because the society would have us, if I can keep you a victim, you will get no work done. You will never fulfill your greatness.
Yes.
So to have someone be, oh, because you were traumatized as a child, you'll never get over that. Every time I see that statement, you know, I want to say, do your work.
Yes.
Because we're not here to be punished. We're here to grow. And then also we have the opportunity to be responsible for clearing out past life karma when maybe we did those same things.
Yes.
I know that might be going a little bit too in, but we did some things in other lifetimes where we need to feel that pain that we caused to someone else so that we can balance out the learning.
Yes.
You know, so I'm so grateful that you said that, because that is our duality now. But then as we move into a higher dimension, we get to observe, we get to judge without being judgmental.
Yes.
I get to see, I get to observe what's going on, but now I get to see that and see, how does that relate to me? Where is that my truth? That's beautiful.
Yes. You know, here's the thing. Again, when we're dealing with the shadow, it's not, I don't want to deal with something that happens individually. The karma of lifetimes creates the momentum of a cultural shadow that we must continuously evolve if we want to transform humanity in the place it was intended to go. There's a philosophy known as teleology. Teleology suggests that everything has purpose.
Yes.
Purpose also influences, our experiences. Everything that you experience, there is a definite purpose of. And the one that we judge today and we inflict sexual shame on, at one time you were the perpetuator of this, which is why you recognize it now in this lifetime. Yeah. But if in this third dimension, the duality keeps us trapped as if this life is all that ever was. Mm. So, you take a man who doesn't recognize his shadow dealing with the feminine, even though he could have been a female in another lifetime. That consciousness still exists within him as a male, but it is being suppressed because that is what our culture does. That's why you see this overwhelming masculine authority trying to take over on the earth, and especially in the United States. America was born July the 4th. That is in the season of Cancer. Cancer is a feminine sign. Now,
the mother, isn't it?
Absolutely. So the philosophy and the consciousness behind the United States is meant to nurture. And you have the Statue of Liberty. Is that a man there?
No.
Absolutely not. It is a female. Why? Because that female holds the torch, symbol of enlightenment, right? Symbol of the light, to invite all of those who are in pain and need help to come to us. Mm. But the masculine is not about that, because it is threatened by the divine feminine, because it doesn't understand its sacred purpose.
Yeah.
In the masculine. So here we go. That's when the shadow is created. The shadow is created when, again, light is presented as information, knowledge. The ego interprets that knowledge, but cannot perceive that there is a shadow that is cast from the knowledge. Every book you read creates a shadow. Mm-hmm. You may get a book, boy, this book is great, I'm so excited. A shadow is being created because light is being presented to a solid object. Mm-hmm. Now, again, I don't want to go back over that, but I want to make it very clear that from that shadow we become integrated. That is where we get the root from integrity, which means that we own what we see and we're true to what we see, and then we become transparent. Mm. That's the path, that's the path over and over and over again. So I apologize to everyone but we taught as coaches. I take responsibility for coaches who didn't engage in their own shadow work to help you, or to cause you to believe that you know, it was a 1 week, one night, whatever, one day event. I'm sorry for that. Because look, for some of us took 30, 40, 50 years to create this beast that we define as ugly and unwanted. But that beast wants our attention because in the beast holds a treasure. It holds a treasure. In every mythology, when you have a beast, there's always a treasure. You look at Lord of the Rings, right? You see in Lord of the Rings, the ring, which represents enlightenment. But when you put the ring on, what did it do? It cast a shadow, you know, and in every mythology it's like that. So while many coaches and teachers are running to the light, there are some that are running to the darkness, because we understand from that darkness comes true light.
Yeah.
Not just information. You can read every book that you want to do. It doesn't make you enlightened just because you have information.
Right.
Enlightenment comes from the pits of Hades, just like Christ had to go through. It is there that you free the trapped souls of yourself, you know, the trapped entities that could launch you into the success that you want. You know,
that reminds me when I was married at 19, and I was in a relationship with my husband, who, you know, I was in that authority, you know, kind of, and it was quite a bit of punching going on, but it wasn't me doing the punching. But anyway, I remember getting this book, and in the book there was a passage that said, "You are where you are because that's exactly where you want to be."
Yes.
Now, I wanted to freaking rip the page out of the book, right?
Yes.
I put that book down, Timothy. I mean, I was mad. I was furious because I'm thinking, how dare you tell me that I'm in this relationship with this man punching on me whenever he doesn't agree with something I say, you know? And I didn't read it for a couple of days. And then I went back to it. And I started over. And I got to the same passage.
Yes.
And it said, "You are where you are because that's exactly where you want to be." So I knew about meditation. So I said, you know what? I need to take this into meditation because I don't agree with this.
Yes.
Not only do I not agree with this, I have all kind of evidence to prove that I'm not where I want to be.
Yes. Right.
But I was missing the opportunity because I was so mad and angry, you know, at the truth that was confronting me. Man, when I'm telling you, probably that night I had a dream that revealed to me that what was missing for me was courage. And in my mind, I had always said, I will never be a single mother, a single parent raising a child. I'll never be that. So, you know, when you set up that criteria, which you will never do, that's what you're fighting against. So that I had shadows all the way around me, right?
Yes, yes.
And I had to come to terms with, okay, I'm willing to let that go. What do I need to do to get out of this situation? And I had to have enough courage to see that if you have to be on your own, you will be okay. But it took me, I'm telling you, it probably took me another year before I could even act on that. But I was at least able to no longer be resistant to, okay, I don't want to be here. So I need to do something to get out of this situation instead of thinking if he changed, then things will change.
Yes, so true. Man.
I'm saying that because of what you just is like, we don't want to see it.
Right.
The book will tell you the truth. You think, oh, I can quote you all day long, but if you haven't looked at that in yourself and did the work, you have no idea what you're missing.
I always say, you know, life doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you're thinking. And the thing with the shadow, it doesn't present conscious thoughts. Nobody consciously would want to be in a painful situation. You know, if we created our life by what would be comfortable to our ego, we would be still stuck in prehistoric stages of evolution, because we would always write the script. No pain here, no sickness here, no discomfort here. I want plenty of money, I want plenty of friends, and I want to die happy and
dancing,
press and repeat. So thank goodness that there is something within us that is wiser than the mask that we put on, who set the course for discomfort. Nobody goes to the gym just to lift feathers.
No.
Go to the gym to resist the weight that makes the experience uncomfortable, but we're willing to endure that because we have a vision of where we want to be afterwards. The problem with those working with the shadow, they don't have a vision of where they will be outside of the pain. Okay? The pain has caused them to believe that this is all there is. So just get used to it. Is you not being accepted by others, you being jealous and envious all the time, or you having this guilt that's never going to leave. So just learn how to deal with it. Cover yourself up, never go out in public, you know, and just be a hermit to yourself. Well, the shadow, we must do the work to understand that if you're going through it, it was perfectly designed for you to overcome it, and not just overcome it, but to extract the treasures from the pain so that you can have this vision of what you want to be. You cannot achieve that without the pain of the shadow. And we are trying every day to do it. We're trying to find the easiest quick fix to how to become this embodiment of enlightenment, or this ascended master, without pain. And it's never been done. It never will be done. I don't care if you exist on the earth. There is a select few who have overcome this process and are still in the body. But more than likely, we don't know them. Everybody, most of us know, is on the wheel of transformation. And that's how we develop community. You know, that's how we invited those in our space who are like-minded. But everybody is not like that. There are some who resisted. I know the resistance is there when I say, you know what, maybe this is what you really want. This is not what I want. What do you mean by that? You know, I paid you this money for you to tell me something I don't want. I said, then why are you experiencing it? Why is it here? You just told me that you believe everything is predestined. Is it only the good things? And all of the negative and bad qualities about yourself, that was meant for somebody else?
Wow.
If you cannot believe in the perfection of the universe and not own the negative that comes with it, okay? Even right now, you look outside, you don't see the sun up, you see duality. You see now the shadow of the sun is out, okay? And while, you know, it's not uncommon for people to be afraid of the dark. It has nothing to do with what they are experiencing in real time. It has to do with the nature of darkness itself, right?
Yes.
So if you watch a scary movie, right? I don't watch scary movies. That's me. But if I did back in the day, I will watch it in the day. We'll watch it at night, and there's a reason for that, because the energies at night are so intense that it really took me to bad places watching certain movies. So I watch it during the day if I'm going to watch it. Eventually I let go of it at all. But there's two different dynamics there, right? So again, with that dualism, we must understand that we must graduate from right and wrong, good and bad. We got to get away from that. any shame and guilt comes up. You know, some of us have the shame of, I should have known this already. I wasted my whole life. You found out the truth when you were ready to hear it. I don't care if you were 80 years old and this morning you woke up realizing that the shadow was only trying to guide you to your destination, the place you said you wanted to be. At 80 years old, it's perfect. Okay? It is the ego who wants to make up time and wondering what is missed, because it doesn't understand the whole purpose of the collective consciousness and evolution in humanity. It can't grasp that. So immediately, instead of celebrating the enlightenment or the information, we begin to look at what we missed out on. We begin to look at what we didn't have. And some people stay stuck there.
Yes.
You know, never allow an event to keep you trapped. I don't care what it is, what happened in your life. And I understand some of us have been through extraordinary circumstances in life. Don't stay there. Okay? Because if you stay there, that's what leads to addictions. That's what leads to not being able to overcome the superficial things that are there to, you know, to really keep you trapped in that experience. I have counseled people who suffered rape at age 14. They are still 14 today in the area of sexuality. They have not grown from that experience. Okay. At some point, we must learn it is okay to let go of that experience in order for me to learn not what happened, but why it happened. And I believe the shadow has the information to guide us to that place of discovery. Yes.
That is powerful. And I believe this is the time for that work to come forward, especially, you know, and it's not just women, but, you know, for the sake of our children.
Yes.
You know, so that we can have them address their shadow at a young enough age, or at a that's not even young enough age, where they're not taught to pretend so much, and that they can be who they are regardless of what's going on, and that they have the capacity to speak about it.
Yes.
You know, right now we have achievement at such a high point that, you know, that's the only thing that they relate to. What kind of grades did I get? What kind of grades did I get? What kind of grades did I get? And there's nothing going on with how do you feel about yourself.
Yes.
So you get all of this external stuff going on. You know, you got the hair, you got the makeup and the eyelashes, and there's the inside is really where the pain is.
Yes.
And it doesn't even have to be rape or molestation. There's other type of pain that can feel just as bad as that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, so how do we create this and I'm loving that, you know, when we look at the you know, the image of evolution, how feelings, shame and guilt are on the bottom.
Yes, yes, yes.
That frequency is the bottom realm. So if we have the bottom realm there, then we have to be able to have them experience moving up to at least where they can get angry.
Right.
Because they're not even angry.
Right.
They're still in shame and guilt.
I truly believe that, you know, David Hawkins really lays out the levels of emotional pain that we go through as it relates to consciousness. And guilt and shame are at the core. Most children don't even get to the level of pride. You know, like you said, they get stuck at angry. And we go into our adult lives angry, and we put on the mask of contentment. The mask of tolerating. You know, the mask of, like you say, pretending. And we become the actresses of our experiences. We never know who we really are until one day the shadow is just so overwhelming that we must engage in the work. So I say to anyone, if you have children, the best thing you can do to assist them in their own shadow work is to do it yourself. If you do it, if they see you not reacting to every negative experience, they learn how to go into the deep recesses of the mind and reflect on what has happened so they can respond properly. Our children don't know how to respond with conflict. And we teach, instead of sitting them down and working through the tools of the shadow, which I can proudly say that, you know, we did that with our daughter. But we must understand also, it is the job of the parent, even unconsciously, to pass a shadow to their children. You're not going to have perfect children.
That's not the idea.
You're not going, let me tell you, you can't, well, maybe you can, but I'm going to say you just can't get it more right than we got right. I'm talking about the duality with our child, but yet the shadow appears.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are our children learning unconsciously about how to deal with the conflict of shadow issues? Most of us, including we have a holiday season coming up with Christmas, most of us comfort the shadow by distractions. So we get them things. We get them objects to look at, because if they're looking and preoccupied with the object, then the shadow will not be in sight, therefore out of sight, out of mind. However, kids, just like adults, become bored. Yeah. Because objects are just the Band-Aid. Again, it is not the medicine that actually heals us. Okay. So understand, our children, the job of the parent is to pass on a more evolved shadow. Our children should not be struggling with what we struggle with. It should be a new level, an evolved, ascended struggle, if you will, of the shadow. From there, they take that, and I told my daughter, you know, well, me and my wife both did, look, you're going to have issues with how you were raised. Even though we tried to do it perfectly, we gave you a voice to articulate the pain, you know, even if it was a projection, you still had the space to say what was wrong or what you felt was wrong. Right. No matter how perfect we were, you're going to have problems with that. You're more than comfortable in bringing that back to us later in life. Okay? Because guess what? When you have your children, your babies, you will pass on a more evolved shadow for them to work through. And over time, hopefully, we can unite the tension of two opposites of right and wrong and have a better understanding of our purpose here. Okay? Because most of us, you know, our purpose is to just try to find a way to be happy. Do something that you like doing it. And like I said, find yourself a good job. The good job is just a distraction from the true work. A job, you know, is not the work. We are talking about the work, and it is, you know, this is work that has always been here, you know, especially dealing with the opposites. You know, in scriptures, you have Cain and Abel, that story, you know, and Cain represents a portion of the shadow. Abel was a shepherd of the land. He was an overseer. He was one who was pretty much in charge. But Cain was a farmer. He planted seeds of awareness into that. And one of those seeds evidently became envy. Envy came and murdered the light or the mask. It's all through the mythologies if we just sit down and listen. But with our children, and because of our inability to teach our children, we punish them.
Yes. Okay? Or reward.
Or reward, right? Punishment and reward. And we do that because we don't know how to even bring up the conversation of a shadow that could have carried over from a painful life in another world, another dimension. They brought that here. And that's another thing. I could look at the astrology and see directly how the parent shadow will influence the child's even as a baby. I can see how this is going to happen, you know. So again, I tell anybody with the work we do, holler at us, because this is why we are here. You know, and you know, there are so many people, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And they keep putting it off. I know the shadows at work. Yes. And I don't rush it. I don't be like, no, you said you're going to do that today. I expect to hear from you. I don't do it because I understand the shadow is a patient process. And everybody who says they want to, what most people want to feel better, not be better. And I understand that. And I'm cool with that. You know, eventually over time, you just become comfortable with how the shadow works within the clients. But with the babies, when I work with children, the number one hindrance to the children's process, I said it earlier this year when we did the astrology with the children, it is always the parents. Always the parents, you know. So I say to the parents, just do the work, let your children observe that. If a child does something that you don't approve of, it is the perfect time to discuss shadow issues and not just punish the behavior or reward the behavior if they do something you like.
Right. That, you know, I think what happens in that situation is that parents either feel shame or guilt about what has happened with their child. So when a child does something that they don't approve, they feel like I did something wrong.
Yes.
But they don't say that. What they do is they either do the reward or punishment. Right? Because even when the child does something good, they take that on like I did something right. When actually both of those are opportunities to address what you're saying.
Yes.
What is here? Because if you keep rewarding the child for being who they are, every time they do something, they're going to think they're supposed to be rewarded.
Yes.
Right. And all it does is feed the ego. It doesn't get to their sense of doing what they love. They're doing it for the applause.
Right.
So, you know, there's a danger on both sides of that, you know, for parents to actually be, you know, mindful of. Are you getting the message?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
So, yeah, so I would like for when you talk about the work that you do in astrology, you know, and I know that you did work with me and my relationships with my children, or at least with one of them. And it gave me a lot of insight so that I could be more, instead of being concerned, I could actually be in the mindset of relaxing and allowing things to work themselves through. You know, like, oh, this is the work that we came here, the two of us are doing. You know, this is the dance that we're in. There's nothing wrong. It isn't bad.
Right, right.
You know, this is just how it looks right now.
Right.
So, I think that people should take you up. Do you have an offer that you're doing inside of this conversation for people who are listening that would like to take you up on getting a natal chart done for either themselves or their children? Are you doing anything with the offer?
I tell you what, because you brought it up, I'm going to discuss it with my wife, and we'll come up with something. Because, like I said, if someone is serious, and like I said, I tell anyone, our work is for those who really you're searching, and you really want to do this work. Because it does nothing. When I get the astrology and I look at the planetary placements, I see clearly the connection. Like I said, especially anybody who wants to do a composite charts between the child and the parents. We can do that to see how all of you chose each other at this time to grow. And we can look at shadow issues from that. For those who are truly serious about that, or if you want an individual chart just to look at where your shadow qualities are hiding or existing, we can do that as well. Just contact me through the Awakened Magi page, and we can go from there. You know, even if you were a past client, we'll still honor that work and discount for you. I'm sure my wife will help me come up with something very good to serve those who are in need of that.
Well, I highly, and most of us really in the coaching community with Masterforce, we highly recommend using natal charts inside of relationships, whether it's with your children, your mate, even your boss. You would literally be surprised at how much if we surrender to the journey of the soul instead of the achievement of the ego, it would be so much more fun.
Yes. Absolutely.
And you may end up with wealth and riches too. I don't know, but at least you would be so joyful. You would be so fulfilled in who you are as a person that so much of the outside stuff almost doesn't, it doesn't even attract you anymore.
Absolutely. So true. Totally agree with this.
Yeah. So that would be awesome. So we're getting to the end of our program. I'm sure you have tons more to talk about.
I do. I'm looking at my notes. I didn't even talk about it.
Okay, but what is it? What is it like you just have to say? Like there is just, that our audience listening tonight, they have to be left with this piece. What is that?
Okay. Well, if there was anything I was going to say, it's going to be this. When the shadow comes to visit you, it's going to ask you some questions, okay? Even though you may not be consciously aware of what these questions are, I can guarantee you, you're going to fit in one of these questions here, okay? It's going to ask us to stop blaming others. It's going to ask us to take responsibility. It's going to ask us to move slowly. It's going to ask us to deepen our awareness. It's going to ask us to hold the paradox. It's going to ask us to open our hearts. It's going to ask us to sacrifice our ideals of perfection. And lastly, it's going to ask us to live the mystery.
Wow.
And one of these questions are going to come up anytime you're dealing with the shadow, right? So if they do, don't allow the ego to give an immediate answer because it's not one. Just observe what is being asked of you and be willing. Willingness is probably the most powerful energy of the universe. Is to just, even when I'm in the dark areas of my life and I can't see my way, I can't see the next step, I am willing to embrace that next step and be courageous and trailblaze towards my path of transformation. I think that's going to be very important. So if any of those questions come up, and especially the last one, are you willing to live the mystery? It's living with what you don't know that is going to put you where you need to be. All that you have learned, be asked to let go of that in order to take the next step into the unknown. Because you can't carry that old baggage of information that is outdated. It's not vibrating fast enough to keep up with the next level, and you must let it go. It's very important to really embrace and realize that.
Wow. That is profound. To be able to live in a space of insecurity and uncertainty is probably a very powerful, and mystery is what it's such an adventure.
Right. Absolutely.
It's such an adventure, but it does require yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That is exactly right.
Yeah, that's a deep surrender there. But I think that's the place to be. That's like a t-shirt. Can you live the mystery?
Right. It's the whole purpose of being here.
Yeah. Instead of like, I know what I'm doing and I got to get it right.
Yes. Absolutely.
You don't have to, and you don't need to know.
Especially not today.
That is wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Timothy. I'm looking at the time like, where did the time go?
Wow. I know. It's like a phone conversation between me and you doing these things.
Yes, we can go on and on. And I also saw some other opportunities as we were talking that we may want to create, where we need to have regular dialogues in certain topics to bring people inside of this conversation. Because I think we drop it off. And then it's again what people do at church. They go to church on Sunday, they hear it, they get moved by it, but then it's like they go out into the real world.
Right.
And how is it applied? How do we apply that? So, But for those of you listening, I really encourage you to get to know Timothy. Follow him on the Awakened Magi on Facebook. And are you still doing your astrological updates from time to time?
We're going to pick that back up. Like I said, there's some things that transpired here that's kind of taking up my time, but we're definitely going to get back on that. So keep looking at that page, and especially with the Saturn and Capricorn, the lessons to be learned and lessons to be created.
Yes.
You know, I'm going to discuss those as well. So
very cool. And then tomorrow night we have Thursday with Kiana Thompson, Mimi Thompson, and we're going to be talking about healing through the chakras. And that's going to be a really great way to move through, because the shadow work actually, you know, when you start doing shadow work, you start dealing with your organs and things in your body that are speaking to you, where the chakras are starting to communicate. I know people all the time talk about having sore throats.
Right.
You know, and that's, you know, you're probably swallowing your anger instead of sharing your true self, your authentic voice. You know, so there's work to do, but there's also an aspect of the shadow.
Yes.
That's speaking. So all of this work ties in together. So once again, I want to thank you, Timothy, for just being, you know, my confidant. My brother King, that, you know, you just have such an amazing family. You know, I love Jiquay. I'm really sorry that she couldn't be here. And at the same time, you know, I know that everything is in divine order.
Very true.
You know, and I trust the process. So I know that it is fine. You know, I'm pretty good with duality.
There you go.
Because it's going to do what it do. Why am I going to get upset over this, that, or any of it?
Absolutely.
It's just not a good use of energy. And I would look forward to speaking to you and heading back to Tennessee very soon.
We're waiting. We're here.
You guys are so great. So, you know, I'll be talking with you. And thanks again for the work that you do. And it's just really great, you know, being on the same team and being on this journey together. So
thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. And give hugs and kisses to your family.
I will.
All right. Good night.